Today we're going to look at an awesome paint color by Sherwin, and this one was specifically requested by one of you. Thanks for the super thanks, Ryzen8. Today we're talking about this color, Armory by Sherwin. A couple things of note. This is a very dark color. It is extremely deep and rich, and it's also part of the Emerald Designer Edition collection of paint colors by Sherwin. So not only am I going to give you details on this color in particular, and some other paint colors that go really well with it, I'm going to add another layer of complexity and just limit myself to the Emerald Designer Edition collection colors for this video. So that goes for the trim color pairings and the general wall color pairings as well. So let's get right into it, right after you press that like button for me. Thank you. So to start things off, Armory is a paint color that I tend to define as a deep off black chocolate brown. I would even equate it to being a bit of an espresso brown. It is part of the neutral family of colors because even though it's incredibly saturated, it isn't a vibrant color. It isn't one that's overly punchy and not all that obvious in regards to its undertones. We do know that it's very, very dark, and we know exactly how dark it is by looking at its light reflectance value, or the LRV, and it is a 5 out of 100. So if you don't know what LRV means, the lower that number, the closer it is to being a true deadpan black. Now, there are no 0 LRV paint colors that I know of, but 5 is pretty close to being one of the darkest ones. And on the Sherwin website, you have LRV right here, but then right below it, you have the RGB value. And this is not really something that us paint professionals really care about, but what it does tell us is digitally, this is the balance of red, green, and blue in this paint color. And what we can see here is the blue is the lowest of the three. And that's because Armory isn't a dark slate gray, navy blue. It is very much on the brown side of things with a little bit more prominence in the red category. This almost gives it a deep, dark cocoa, espresso brown, maybe a little bit of a purple undertone in certain lighting as well. That would deem it as a warmer feeling color, but because of how dark it is, it's not going to be like hot chocolate. Like, it's not going to feel overly warm and cozy, even though it is part of the warm and welcoming palette within Sherwin. I think the main reason for that is it goes really well with warm colors, but it's not going to feel overly warm in person. Now let's talk about some paint colors that go really well with Armory, in my opinion. Armory is an excellent choice if you want something really rich and dark, whether that's in the form of an accent room or an accent piece, an accent wall. You get the drift. It's so dark and it absorbs so much light that it's not something that I would really consider for the main parts of my home on all 4 walls, let's say. It's just a bit too dark for that purpose. But even though it's not quite as versatile as an off-white, it makes up for it with that deep level of drama and contrast that can be perfect in certain situations. Now, what if you wanted to incorporate some trim colors alongside Armory? What would I recommend? I got 2 recommendations for you. The first one is White Snow, and this is one of probably my favorite off-whites or white paint colors within the Emerald Designer Edition collection. It's crisp, it's clean, it's not too yellow leaning or creamy. It also doesn't have an overabundance of blue that makes it icy, even though the name might imply that it's kind of cool. It just feels very balanced to me and goes extremely well with nearly any color I throw at it. If you wanted a dark trim color to go alongside Armory, I mean, you can't get much darker than it, but Big Dipper is one that has a very similar LRV in 6 instead of 5, but now we have a color that is very much in the cool territory, that slate gray, charcoal type of color. So it's going to feel identical in terms of depth, essentially, but the undertones are very different. So you have this chocolatey brown versus this slate gray. It's almost the opposite, because again, if we look at the LRV here, what we have is the red dialed down, and then you have a little more of that green and blue. And that does translate in Big Dipper, especially in person. Now, what about some other colors that we can just flesh out this palette with? The first one being Sun Bleached, which is a really great sort of light grayish color within the emerald line. To me, it feels extremely balanced in terms of the beige and the gray aspect mixed together. Very versatile color, works perfectly with Armory and a number of other colors, to be fair. And also what's great about it is it has a 75 LRV, so maybe a bit lighter than I normally recommend as like a go-to color. But because you're starting with something so dramatically dark with Armory, I wanted to up the lightness a bit with my kind of main neutral in this palette, and that's Sun Bleached. Wonderful choice as the default color in the larger parts of your home. So if you want something that just kind of carries over throughout the hallways, maybe of your home or your living areas, and you don't want a color that's going to conflict with anything too much, this is a great choice for that. The second color is another neutral, and although it has warm in the name, it is very much a neutral, kind of right in the middle type of color. It's called Warm Pewter, and this is like a 40-ish LRV taupe, I would say. So a great combination of brown and gray, a little bit warmed up, I would say. So it's not a stone type of taupe that you might see that's more gray leaning. I like this color because it's neutral enough to work in a variety of places in your home, but it also has some richness to it. So it's not going to feel too pale and pastel. It's robust and has a lot of body, I feel. It's a great color. So we have two neutrals, and then we have our dark chocolatey brown in Armory. What is the last color in this palette to round things out and give you a nice punch of something? Because we need something. And we got something in Juniper. Look at this color. It is this beautiful, rich, almost jade-like green. It feels very saturated, but also has a slightly dusty quality to it where it's not completely vibrant and electric, although the undertone is very, very prominent. It is a beautiful jewel-like green with just a touch of blue kind of teal action to give it an aquatic overtone, but I really think it cuts through beautifully whether you have it next to the neutral colors or Armory, because now you have this really strong green complementing that touch of a red undertone, that brown, that chocolatiness found in Armory. So they're gonna pop off each other beautifully. Here's the palette all together. Let me know what you think. And again, thank you, Ryzen 8. Really appreciate the tip. And next up, we have this colorful video for you from me.